My name's Ari Mark. I'm the executive producer of Queen of Versailles Reigns Again and owner of Ample, the production company.
And I'm Phil Lott, executive producer of The Queen of Versailles Reigns Again and also owner of Ample.
Here we are. We're ready to share this with the world. My name is Jackie Siegel, and my husband is David Siegel. I love you.
I'm building the largest home in America.
It's now time to finish Versailles. I'm home. Oof, I think I'm gonna ruin my shoes. I'd like to show you around a little bit.
If she wants something, she's gonna go get it.
One statue is like $30,000. What do you think, Mochi? You like it? The house, it should be a little bit bigger, actually. We bought the land in 2000. A couple years later, we started construction. This house has taken me 20 years to build. I've been through the loss of a child. I value family more than ever. He's heard about our house, girls. Our kids are growing up. We want to live here as a family. Failure is not an option. We don't have much time left.
How many flamingos are you planning on getting at Versailles?
As many as I can get. There's so many chefs in the kitchen that you don't get the perfect recipe. Don't we have a Versace emblem?
Can't put these inside a house. Everything comes out. We have some issues.
I don't think we need to make it more complicated. Is the marble gonna crack?
The water's dripping on all your antiques.
Did you guys say Grace? Grace. Okay. I don't know what I'm in for. This is one frickin' mess up.
Hello, I'm Sonia Winesett, and this is an episode of Filmmaker Focus. Today, we're interviewing Phil Lott and Ari Mark, executive producers of The Queen of Versailles Reigns Again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, cool to be here. Thanks.
Fantastic. So we'll start easy. What was the initial spark for creating the series, The Queen of Versailles Reigns Again?
This show kind of came about in an interesting way because we have a pretty good relationship with the execs over at HGTV and Discovery Plus, and we were speaking about how we can get in business together. And they know very well of our kind of artistic ambitions and unwillingness to settle. So they're like, okay, what can we do to push the envelope, right? HGTV is obviously known for a certain type of show. So what can we do to kind of take that a little bit further? And we were batting around different renovation shows, different renovation ideas. How do we do something that leans a little bit more into premium and a little bit more into documentary, something a little more observational? And Maggie Zeltner, actually our exec on the show, was like, that movie Queen of Versailles? And I was like, oh my God, I love that movie. She's like, whatever happened to her? And I'm like, I don't know. So because Phil and I are a little bit psychotic, and once we have a scent, we're like, so we just went after it. I tracked her down, spoke to her. We really hit it off. And truthfully, I know it sounds crazy, but it was really that simple. It was just a lot of conversations with Jackie, building trust, because I think that's a huge portion of what we do, is building trust and sort of making her understand that we're coming at this from a place of authenticity and not coming at it from a place of, frivolousness or, oh, it's just, we just want to see you act nuts. That's not what we're about. And so I think she understood that pretty early. And it turned out to be a great partnership.
What did you think your initial approach would be towards this project, and how did that evolve?
The truth is that you always want to make the network happy, right? Because it's a relationship that we value. They know the renovation space better than us. So the instinct was, let's make a renovation show. How the hell are we going to elevate this? Obviously the size of the house is impressive. The past story is impressive. Jackie herself is a big character. So, we had these things going for us. But of course the question was, well, how do we come about it from another way? And I'm not going to lie, I don't really think we actually knew, going in. I think we, which is a much more filmmaker approach, where it's like we sort of had to feel our way through it. And we did. And I think the thing that we found was that Jackie and the Siegels in general are not who you think they are. They're really not attention-seeking people, which, I'll admit I sort of assumed they were because of the way the documentary portrayed them. But, they're just so generous and nice and warm. So we're like, wait a second, this is like, this is actually better than what we anticipated because you've got this family that's inviting us in, that's inviting the audience in, that's defying expectations of what you think about them, that's, that has a love for life and has a love for family. And, we were like, okay, we really have to push that as much as we can. And, unfortunately with these shows, you don't always get a second shot because, by the time you start realizing that, you're already into production, right? So, then it's about playing catch up and being like, okay, do we have enough time to really embed here? Do we have enough time to really tell that piece of it? And thankfully, the network was smart enough to really let us embed as opposed to just doing what a lot of shows do, which is you helicopter in, you shoot something, and you get out of there, right? And so having that extra time with her not only developed trust, but it kind of broke down some of the walls, and I think revealed something new and cool.
What kind of access were you given to Jackie and her family? Was there anything that was off limits for the Siegels?
If anything, she was always pressing us to do more. I was like, right?
It's not every day on a show when you get a text from the lead star telling you, hey, I'm going on a plane to Rome. Do you want to come? And you got to make a decision.
And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. The network, we're going to have to get money from the network. It feels like by the time you go, I don't know if I'm going to have the approval. She's like, no, just come. She's like, I'm going anyway. Just get on the plane. Oh, okay. So, and that's what I mean about the generosity is I think she sees this show as more than just entertaining the audience. I think this is a chance for her to really kind of, show who she is, show what she's about, and demonstrate her legacy to the world, and that's, so in a lot of ways, the house really just becomes this kind of like metaphor, really more than anything else.
Do you think that's why they agreed to do the series? They wanted to give viewers a different perspective of them, tell their own story in their own words?
I think she knew pretty quickly that, and I was very, I stressed this a lot in my initial conversations with her, is that we were not looking to do some kind of, expose. We were doing something that was coming from a good place. And given her experience in the past, I think she was just really, it was very refreshing for her. And, she knew right away that there was something special here that, frankly, she could take advantage of. She's really smart. So I think she also knew, from a branding standpoint and all this kind of stuff, like, this is great. I mean, I can, I have this platform where I can actually really show people what Versailles really is like and what my family is really like. And I think that was exciting for her, right?
Yeah. And this is the bit where I get to give big props to my partner because, it's a big ask for a talent. It's a big ask for talent.
First time.
And when people have been sort of a little bit bitten, and I'm not just talking about the film, but also the kind of the sort of public face of her persona after that, how she's portrayed in the press, it's a lot of trust. And I think Ari really steered that ship incredibly well.
She hasn't been portrayed very nicely in the media. And did that in any way sort of impact this project? I mean, obviously, probably more going in, but, once you gained her trust.
I think, frankly, that's what, motivated us to make it. It was like, it was a little bit of like, screw them.
After Victoria's death, the press treated me so bad, they called her the doomed princess. The press claimed that, like, me and my husband were bad parents, and they were making fun of us because I had a big hat. But it was an outdoor funeral, and it's June, it's like 100 degrees. And they said I looked like I was going to the Kentucky Derby. And then I was taking pictures of the casket. I mean, this was the last moments that my daughter was going to be above ground, Everyone deals with it different, so shame on them for making fun of that.
Really, it wasn't really fair, Genuinely in my heart, I don't think that's who they are. I think the Siegels are actually quite relatable family, and I think that's what we uncovered. And I think that's what's going to surprise, viewers is that, yes, of course, it's, wrapped in this glitz and this glam, and of course, and that's really, but it's fun, and that's the stuff that kind of pulls you in. But once you're in, you're like, oh, her mom's just like my mom. She's telling me how to cook my, mac and cheese.
And so do you think you were able to, by the end of filming, capture an accurate portrait of Jackie?
Definitely. No question that we have an accurate portrait of Jackie. I think people will soon realize that she's, first of all, she's incredibly bright. She comes from a very humble background. The Siegels are totally self-made.
I didn't always live like this. I grew up in a working class family near Binghamton, New York. Our house was a $20,000 house, and my mom worked at the TV station. My dad worked as an engineer at IBM, and my father was my idol. I wanted to make him proud of me, so I decided to go to RIT for my engineering degree. It paid off, and I was the only girl in my curriculum to actually graduate.
Everything that she does and everything that she touches and everybody that she invites into her life is really with a sort of gesture of inclusion and a gesture of generosity. I mean, that's truly my takeaway, and people who know me know that I don't, just mince words. So, I mean, she's definitely a special lady, and I just hope that we get to, do more with her, because I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, and every scene, every sequence is a nexus between Jackie and her love of family and the home, and how that sort of holy trinity kind of connects each time is the heart of the show and the heart of every single scene. And once you have that North Star, Jackie, she doesn't even have to be in the scene for her influence to impact the decisions, relationships, and it all comes back to her providing a place for her family to be together and create memories.
It's a big empowerment story because her husband fell ill during the film, but she was able to step into the spotlight because she had to, right? And by stepping into the spotlight, I think she proved to herself and to her kids that, like, okay, I can do this. I can get this project done, or at least closer.
All my kids are practically all grown up. Me and my husband, we realized we're not getting any younger. Versailles has stopped and started, and it's been a long time. Starting the new year, we finally decided we've got to get this house done. And then he has a health ailment, but he didn't want to slow down the construction on the house, so he put me in charge. And he says, Jackie, it's in your hands. Finish this house.
Jackie admits, she wasn't very involved in the original construction.
Right.
And so what was her approach for taking charge of, this redesign, renovation, and completion of Versailles?
Just by into the situation, she had to take charge a little bit more because of absence of other folks. And I think once that spotlight was on her, I think she took it on board. I mean, she's an engineer by training. I mean, she's incredibly smart. So she liked that challenge. But then immediately, she kind of, again, taking it back to the idea of this being about family and legacy, she brought in her sons, because she knows that if you're building a palace, then you want it to last generations and this will be their home one day. So she wanted to bring them in, but also in that kind of nurturing mother mode. These are boys that she's training for life, and they had real skills and life lessons they'd learned from their dad, and a little bit of osmosis of being around this sort of massive business. And the first thing one of the sons said, Dave Jr. said, was, my dad taught me you can't do a project this big all at once. You have to take smaller bites. And the moment that happened between him and Jackie, you just saw something switched in the series, and just worked double times. It was pretty incredible to watch.
Good morning, kitchen. Floor's finally done. We don't want anybody to mess it up now.
And I don't want to let my mom in here at all anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. I know my mom is really stressed out. She's dealing with a lot. She made all her decisions, all the design aspects, well, except for finding the right birds. When I bring her back, I want it to be like a grand reveal. There is no way that I can just let my mom do this alone. I can tell that she needs some help. That's kind of why I took a step in here to be involved with the house. I really don't want to let my mom down.
The production was trying to get a sense of, okay, well, what's the plan here? What are we doing? Like, well, hold on, we have this shed filled with all the past contractors' designs and past architects and past designers. Oh, okay, great. And you go in there, it's like box after box after box after box after box, and it is so overwhelming. I was like, we are so, because how are we supposed to document this, and how is she ever going to gain momentum again?
Versailles is a lot more than I thought it was going to be, with all of its challenges. And I need David by my side. I feel so helpless right now.
To her credit, I think she realized pretty quickly that this is probably her last shot to really finish this house. And so she stepped up.
The construction of Versailles changed so many hands during the past 20 years. I mean, I can't imagine not only the construction challenges for the design team, but also, for you guys on the production side. I mean, how did this impact production and this sort of goal to accomplish, the completion of Versailles within a year?
I mean, I think in the beginning, it really is crazy when you try to wrap your head around just the sheer scale of it, which is why the house still isn't finished. But, we sort of had to take on the role of like part producer, but then we're also producing the renovation and the construction too, because we're like, hey guys, like, what are we doing today? It's like, oh, okay, we're doing this, this, and this, and be like, oh, well, when do you think that's going to be done? So because production's all about time, obviously, and construction's all about time. The difference is we have to actually hit deadlines. So, so it really became a really funny, I mean, we had a lot of fun with it. Like, it actually sort of became kind of clownish because we were like, hey, I wonder what's happening today at Versailles. And so, that's why we needed to take an imbed approach and make sure that we had somebody who was there on the grounds, not once a month, not once a week, every single day, that if they needed to be, they were on call, and if they needed to come over there, they can come over there and shoot something that was actually happening. It's just very hard to know, to your point, when something's going to happen and when it isn't. But I think, the Siegel family got more used to production crew and what we needed, and we got more used to what they needed. And so over time, it really started to smooth out. And then before you know it, we're like, oh, we need to deliver a rough cut. So,
and you got to remember this. This is the house that's just been in construction for 20 years.
Yeah.
So there's bits that have been left out in the Florida sun and rain and humidity for 20 years, which is being renovated. It's being reconditioned. So there's stuff actually being fixed while they're also constructing, and they're demoing because ideas are changing at the same time. So it's in 3 stages of production every single day, and you turn up with the crew, and there's fewer walls than there was yesterday.
What was that? Everybody away from that wall.
It's pieces of stone falling off.
That's why in some ways, like, if it was just starting from the beginning, not that I'm saying, I mean, God forbid, but if we were starting from the beginning in some ways, anyone who knows, if you've ever built a house, there's a difference between building it from the ground up and, I think I'll just renovate my kitchen and then we'll kind of work around everything else. It's actually in some ways much harder. And we were very much doing the latter on a massive scale because they had all the marble, but the marble's falling apart. And they had all the, a lot of the ballroom stuff already in there. But, now the tastes have changed, or the kids got older, or, I don't know, the price of what emeralds went up. I'm like, oh.
I mean, literally, one of the kids' bedrooms, had a theater stage in it for doing like kids' plays in it. And the kids are now in their 20s. Like, I don't need a theater for doing little pop-up.
We're not doing puppet shows, they're going to nightlife stuff, so.
The morning kitchen is the first room to be completed. How long did it take the design team to actually complete?
What they basically did was they said, okay, let's prioritize, knowing that finishing the entire house in her deadline, at some point, reality seeped in, not just to her mind, but all of our minds, and contractors and designers. And they finally had to pull our aside and be like, listen, we get it. We know you want this and we know you want that, but there's only so much that's humanly possible. Can you at least prioritize the rooms that you want to get done now, and then we can kind of build around it? And so the morning kitchen was one of those rooms because I think she had a really clear vision for that one.
Oh, I can't wait. You're gonna love this room, Mom. Are you ready? Here we go.
Oh my God.
Oh, no.
What? Oh my God. Wow, that's insane.
Wow. Oh, I love it.
This is just a little bit nicer than our kitchen at home. A little bit.
This is insane. I'm in awe. I mean, I can't believe my eyes. I feel like I'm in paradise. The morning kitchen is even beyond what I expected.
So the morning kitchen probably took about 5 months, but it took 5 months alongside the pub, and it took 5 months alongside
the formal dining room or one of the other rooms.
So it's actually edited. It's actually pretty accurate. That sort of you get those reveals later in the series, because truthfully, those rooms just weren't at a place to reveal much. So because they were all being worked on essentially at the same time.
And bear in mind, she's also at the same time she's figuring out what birds to put in the morning kitchen, and that takes several months also.
Oh yeah, the birds.
So speaking of her birds, let's talk about her menagerie. What sort of production challenges did that present for you? I mean, all the birds and the dogs and the chickens, and who actually takes care of them?
She has a very good team of people dedicated to look after all of her animals. She's a huge animal lover, and
she has a ranch also,
so
that helps.
All the animals are incredibly kind of well looked after, despite the noise they make while they're trying to film. And that was perhaps the biggest one. You couldn't even identify what creature it was making noise, interrupting your filming. It's like, it's the toucan. No, it's not. It's chinchilla. No, it's not. It's one of the cats.
I'm like, I've never even seen a goat like that before.
So that was the first issue, just sort of figuring out where all the creatures were, who they were, who to call if they were making too much noise. But also, you're introducing some of these creatures to a brand new environment that hasn't been tested out yet. So, I'm not going to say that chasing birds around the kitchen became a pastime, but it definitely was not an occurrence that didn't happen.
There's nothing funnier than your sound guy being chased by, a flamingo.
And let's talk about that 63,000 square foot warehouse filled with millions of dollars of antiques collected over the last 20 years. Was the design team able to find a place for all the items?
Let's say not. I mean, it's really interesting because as Jackie talks about it, this warehouse represents her time with David, her husband, and every time they go on vacation or they go traveling or whatever, it becomes a memory. So it's not simply a warehouse full of, cool stuff they found across the world.
There's all kinds of crazy things in the warehouse. Oh, here's my shark, Bruce. Stuff that I probably even forgot what I bought. I'm gonna focus on finding things for the morning kitchen and the ballroom as well. Every time me and my husband went antique shopping, we'd spend at least a couple of million, and we probably went like 15 times. But I don't know exactly how many millions of dollars. I want to say maybe 20, 30 million.
It's a room full of memories. So, there are very specific places that Jackie has in mind for a lot of them, but also the rooms have changed over the time. So even she's like scratching her head trying to think about where to put, several other pianos that she doesn't have a spot for.
Yeah. Jackie's tastes change so fast that, one day it's like, oh, the statue's perfect for this room. And then like the next time she looks at it, it's kind of like, what were we thinking? So, I mean, I think a lot of us can relate to that, right? It's like you have stuff in your closet and I'm like, I'm not putting this on today, So I think it's kind of like that, just obviously on a much bigger scale. So,
what was the most unusual item in Jackie's warehouse? Do you have any good stories about some unusual items?
Yeah, I mean,
the dog. Definitely the dog.
Spoiler alert! I don't know if your audience has seen the show before
the dog.
But
the dog.
She goes past this plexiglass encasement at one point and sees Chanel, her favorite dog, at one point.
Hi, Chanel. Oh, she was my favorite dog in the whole wide world. Oh, poor Chanel.
Do we need to find a home for Chanel in the house?
No. You know what was funny? When I had the Miss America contestants at my house, the dog was near the grand staircase, and all the contestants were on the stairs. And one of the girls says, wow, look how well-behaved that dog is.
Oh.
I think it's a great sort of representation of what Jackie's about. It's like, she's really well-meaning, she's really well-intentioned, but for us, like, you go into this warehouse, and I'm like, is that dog like a real dog, or is that like how did you, oh, that's, what's Doug's name? Chanel. And, oh, I missed her so much. And she picks her up and blah, 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 blah. And she's in this case and da, da, da. And she's like, we have to find a great spot for her. But like, most people don't do that.
Which room or area of the house was the toughest to complete from both a production and a design perspective?
There's a lot. There's a lot of options for that answer, but I think the ballroom floor.
Yeah, the ballroom floor
is by far the most complicated piece of artwork, let's call it, in the house, because it is a massive, wonderful piece of art. I mean, it's beautiful
But it's a single piece,
and it has. And I was just doing the math. I think it's like 32 countries. There are items on this floor from 32 countries that they're currently being combined in one spot.
They're baked into the actual marble.
The floor in the ballroom is going to be a combination of marble and precious stones from all over the world.
This amethyst is really going to be throughout this main area.
You know, I could almost make like a ring out of this.
Right?
I could match the floor. It's going to be the most unique and incredible floor of anywhere in the world.
And it's millions and millions of dollars and thousands of, person hours.
And it's basically jewels, sort of kind of encrusted into the floor. And there's this is the one where there's this giant butterfly on the floor because her daughter, Victoria, who unfortunately passed away, that was like her symbol, this butterfly. And so she created this floor in her memory, and it's like, I mean, it's just like mind blowing. I've never seen anything like it.
In one of the episodes, David Jr. says, Jackie has a big imagination with some brilliant ideas, but she falls short on realistic expectations. What was your experience with this? And could you share some examples?
When you live in Jackie's world, when you experience Jackie's world for 10 minutes, you realize that there's no bar that's too high. There's no date that's too soon. Things happen when you're in that orbit. And so unrealistic is a term you have to really kind of reconsider when you're Jackie Siegel.
When the contractor and the architect talked about having to reskin the exterior of Versailles, because the marble might not have been put on properly, like, what were you guys thinking? Like, this was, obviously time, right? Like, how long is this going to take?
And money. I mean, the lead time for getting marble. Bear in mind, the Siegel family bought a mine, a marble quarry in Italy, an entire marble quarry, just so they could secure enough marble to do this task in the first place. And it cost, I think we're talking about $9 million to do. So on top of the fact that we're talking about time, we're also talking about, well, if they spend $9 million on the outside that we've already seen, are they not going to spend it on the inside, which we want to see? So it's, yes, never the same day twice.
I think we would have, honestly, I think if the marble had to be redone, it would have been a very tough phone call to the network, being like, hey, we really tried very hard, but, it's not going to happen.
Out there with glue.
Yeah, exactly.
We took off all the pieces that were either big or hanging or loose so that we're safe.
We need answers. Whether or not we have to take it all down, it's pretty nerve-wracking because I think it would just be heartbreaking for my entire family, especially my dad and my mom. I mean, they just don't want to go backwards like that at all. Nobody does.
The tests came back positive for us that the stone does not absorb too much water. So we're going to be able to keep this stone, so now we just have to fix and repair where needed.
That's amazing. I really thought we were going to have to reskin the entire house.
The whole house.
I really do feel way more relieved. Anything is better than reskinning the whole thing. The last thing I want to see is this house naked. Oof.
But yeah, no, lucky for us, they were able to, just kind of fix what was already there.
Overall, what was the most difficult aspect of producing this series?
I mean, there's two things that pop into mind. I think one is the fact that we all know that production does not jive with real life. So no matter how much you want something to be real, no matter how much you want to be fly on the wall, at the end of the day, literally watching paint dry is not going to do it. And when you don't even know when the paint's being applied to the wall, you certainly can't watch painting dry. So you kind of touched on this jiving the house production with the series production is a very challenging thing. So that was one big piece of it, obviously, and we touched on that. But I think the other thing was that I think to make anything really great, you really have to put in the time. And even though the schedule was healthy and the network really understood that, it still wasn't enough because things, again, life doesn't happen on our schedule. And so if you're really trying to capture life and you're really trying to capture something and you want it to be, truly authentic, we missed lots of stuff because we weren't able to be there really ourselves. I'm talking about around the clock. And so, and also Jackie's the type of person who will leave things out of the conversation, which is very frustrating as a filmmaker. So all of a sudden you find out with 2 weeks left of shooting that she's building a safari. And you find out, that she has a ranch filled with animals around the corner. And you find out that, she's running for mayor in the small town. Like, these types of things are obviously very, very important when you're trying to tell a full picture of somebody. And so you get into that TV mindset as opposed to the film mindset where you go, we gotta push this through. We gotta push post. We gotta keep going. We gotta keep going. And it's just hard. But it also allows for, I think, the special moments, because I think the thing that was the most surprising about this is the comedy. Like, I really, really find myself laughing, and I don't laugh at a lot of shows. Like, I just don't. I don't find them funny. I never find them funny. In this case, objectively speaking, I'm laughing, and I'm also not laughing in a mean-spirited way. And that is a very delicate line. That's like one of those things that if you can achieve that in a documentary way, I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I think we always talked about it as we want the audience to feel like they're in on the inside, not outside looking in, sort of laughing and pointing. You're inside with her because it's a fun place to be. It's just a nice, warm place to be. And when Jackie says something, you're never quite sure if she really believes it or she believes that it's sort of she knows that she's the Queen of Versailles and that's what the Queen of Versailles should say.
One of our rooms, the morning kitchen, the fabric for the chair is going to be like this. And I was wondering if you have any birds that are kind of like this color.
And it just gives you a whole new perspective of what it could be to build a house when you have that sort of magic, that magical worldview.
I mean, I think just one more thing is that when you watch the series, you'll see certain scenes that you're aware of the camera kind of moving a little, but you're very much in the moment with Jackie and the people around her. And I think those scenes play out a tiny bit more and a little longer than what you usually get in these shows. And I know it doesn't feel like a reinvention, but those types of baby steps make a very big difference for this sort of audience. And I hope and I think that people will feel like they're part of the journey. I think, and I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I definitely think you accomplished that. It was just like you said, these little pockets, you know what I mean, that you don't normally expect from, say, your traditional renovation series that, took it more to the documentary sort of aspect to it. And it just, it allowed you to kind of be in the moment and, made you appreciate Jackie and all the facets of Jackie that there are, because, she does come across really warm. I mean, also very flamboyant and, but definitely a mother, family oriented. And so it was nice that you presented all these different sort of facets of Jackie Siegel.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun.
What do you want your audience to take away from this series?
For her and the whole Siegel family, the family is more important than the design decisions they're making. You know, there's no singular design that they want to have this house that isn't less important than having the family together. And I think if you understand that about Jackie, and I think you will over the season, the series, you know, I think it's a very, very relatable story. I mean, that's why we paint a wall in our own house, because we want it to warm up so it can look nice for Christmas. Now you times that by 90,000 square feet and you have some window into Jackie's world. But at the end of the day, if the sentence doesn't end with, I want to be sitting around this table, or I want to be sitting around this living room, or I want to be sitting around this fireplace, or I want to be sitting with my family making new memories.
Oh my God, it's my favorite pillow.
These things are heavy. Catch.
Oh, don't break the chandelier. Oh, look at Kim's freaking out right now.
Now it feels like our house.
You know, the house is so big, but I feel that this is one room. It's going to be almost like a heart center of the house for me as a mother with the kids.
It might be a bit subtle in there in the sense of like, oh my God, but there's all these things to look at and this thing to look at, and oh, she's saying such funny stuff. But if you think about the actual journey she's on and you think about the experience and the people she's surrounded herself by, it's just fun. And I think she, you know, and I think that's what people are going to take away. I think it's fun, and I think they're going to really, really be surprised at Jackie's depth.
Last question. I want to talk about your collaboration. Like, how do you divvy up the responsibility?
I mean, I think there's a sort of broader conversation about sort of how filmmakers work together, and I think filmmakers, you know, whoever you are, you know, however successful they are, I think there's always, you find a middle point. I think you've got to start off with being on the same page, sensibilities wise. I think, you know, we both definitely share that, have always shared that. I think that's what's made Ample successful. Because if you don't agree on a piece of music, or you don't agree on how you're going to cover it, it's, first off, it takes up an awful lot of time. So you've got to figure all that out. But if you kind of, with a base level of understanding and agreement on that, that helps. But secondly, I think, you know, especially when you're trying to accomplish something as big as this in terms of a production, and I know we were very sort of a small footprint in terms of the filmmakers on the ground and the filmmaking team on the ground, but you're still dealing with, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people on their side, on the kind of the house construction side, and in post, and you still got a traditional kind of machine behind us in production and post. So you had to figure out how you lead that ship and how you tell those stories. And I think just having that one voice has always been incredibly important to us.
Phil is the best executor I've ever seen in the business, which is the reason why we started the company. And so as a very well-trained director of photography, as an incredible editor, and as somebody who I really genuinely think has the best eye in the business, naturally, and a great ear, naturally, he's going to sort of float into that because that's just what he's great at. Doesn't mean he can't do what I do. Probably just worse.
Much worse.
But and then also you have to remember, you know, the business wants to put you in certain boxes. They like that, right? And so we try to resist that as much as we can. And for me, I'm very opinionated. I have very strong feelings about the types of shows I want to make. And I feel very strongly about building relationships with the people that we're working with. And so I tend to really be much more on show creation, bit more on sales side. You know, I talk a lot. and, you know, having been a network executive for a long time, I definitely like to poke holes in things and say, you know what, I totally get everything that's happening right here, but big picture, this isn't going to work, right? And sometimes you have to be that person, and it sucks, but I think it's part of what's allowed us to kind of get here. So
yeah, it definitely keeps production honest in those conversations. I mean, you know, when you fire the starting pistol on a show, it's very easy to get nosedive into the weeds. And so to have that collaboration constantly, it's a constant loop, you know, all the time, just checking balance, checking. And as you just said, it gets you there.
Thank you so much. This was great. I loved hearing, you know, more about the series, and I know that your viewers, the audience, is looking forward to, you know, for it to roll out. So I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thanks so much.
So nice to say. Thank you.
We had fun. It was terrific meeting you, and thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thank you. Yeah, likewise. So have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.